My name is Julian Croft. For 34 years, I operated under a single, unshakable principle. Trust was the bedrock of existence. It was the currency of my career, the foundation of my friendships, and the very air my most important relationships breathed. As a lead architect at a prestigious firm in downtown Seattle, I designed structures meant to last centuries, buildings whose integrity was never questioned. I earned a salary that placed me comfortably in the top percentile, allowing me to own a stunning U apartment in Belltown overlooking the Puget Sound. By all external metrics, my life was a blueprint for success. The centerpiece of this perfect life was Elara Vance. She was 31, a curator at a rising contemporary art gallery in Pioneer Square. With intelligent gray eyes that seemed to see the world in a more interesting light, and a laugh that could soften the edges of the rainiest Seattle day, she was my perfect complement. We shared a passion for hiking in the North Cascades, a fierce loyalty to the Mariners despite their perpetual heartbreaks, and a standing reservation at a tiny, impossible-to-find speakeasy that served the best old-fashioned in the city. We met at a gallery opening in the spring of 2022. She was explaining the thematic tension in a series of mixed-media sculptures, and I was utterly captivated. Within months, I knew I wanted to build my future with her. That future seemed guaranteed by the unwavering presence of my father, Arthur Croft. At 62, he was a titan in Pacific Northwest commercial real estate, a man who had built his empire not on cutthroat tactics, but on a handshake and honor reputation that spanned 4 decades. He and my mother, Eleanor, had been married for 38 years, and their relationship was my template for partnership, a balanced structure of mutual respect, deep affection, and unwavering support. Arthur was the man who taught me how to throw a spiral, how to read a balance sheet, and that a man's word was his most valuable asset. When I introduced him to Elara, he embraced her with a warmth that filled me with pride. He'd often pull me aside at family dinners and say, "Julian, she's a rare find. Don't ever let her go." My mother, Eleanor, adored Elara, frequently inviting her for coffee or museum trips, seamlessly integrating her into the fabric of our family. Our wedding was to be the culmination of this perfect life. We chose a Saturday in November, the moody Pacific Northwest autumn providing a dramatic backdrop. The ceremony was set at the historic Trinity Parish Church, followed by a reception at the Museum of History and Industry, with its panoramic windows framing the Seattle skyline. We had invited 200 guests. I had meticulously planned every detail: the custom suits from my tailor in London, the 5-tier rhubarb and vanilla bean cake, the jazz quartet that would play a mix of Coltrane and modern covers. My best man was Leo, my roommate from my University of Washington days. Elara's maid of honor was her cousin Chloe. The rehearsal dinner was booked at Canlis, and we put a deposit on a private villa in Santorini for a 3-week honeymoon. The blueprint was complete, and every line was perfect. The night before the wedding, I stayed at the Fairmont Olympic Hotel with my father. It was a tradition, one last night of bachelorhood under the guidance of the first man I ever looked up to. My mother and Elara were at the Four Seasons with the bridal party, adhering to the superstition of not seeing each other before the ceremony. Arthur and I ordered steaks from room service and sat at the elegant suite desk going over the final timeline. He was helping me with the complex seating chart, navigating the subtle diplomatic minefield of which aunt couldn't sit near which cousin. "Remember," he said, pointing to a cluster of names, "your great-aunt Beatrice still hasn't forgiven your mother's side of the family for that incident with the heirloom vase in 1998. We need a buffer zone." He chuckled, and I laughed with him. It was one of those perfect, quiet moments of camaraderie I assumed we'd share for decades to come. Around 10:45 p.m., he excused himself to use the restroom, leaving his iPhone, unlocked, next to his half-finished glass of Macallan. I wasn't snooping. My gaze was simply drifting across the room when the screen lit up with a notification. A text message preview from Elara. My blood didn't run cold, it simply stopped. Then it roared back through my veins like fire. The preview read, "Arthur, last night was electric. I've never felt so alive. Every touch is burned into my memory. Counting the hours until I can see you again. This is our beautiful, dangerous secret. Yours, E." Beneath the text was a thumbnail image. It was small, but devastatingly clear. It was Elara, in a hotel room, her head resting on my father's bare shoulder, her face turned toward the camera with a look of serene possession. The timestamp in the corner of the photo read 10:17 p.m. The previous night. The previous night. While I had been at my bachelor party at a private club near Pike Place Market, surrounded by my closest friends, laughing and toasting to my future, the two pillars of that future were conspiring to destroy it. The floor of my world didn't just crack, it vaporized. When my father returned from the bathroom, humming contentedly, I had already taken multiple high-resolution photographs of his phone screen with my own. My training as an architect, the meticulous documentation, the attention to irrefutable detail kicked in with a cold professional efficiency. My hands were steady. My voice was calm. "I'm beat, Dad," I stretched. "Big day tomorrow. I should try to get some sleep." He clapped me on the shoulder, his grip firm and familiar. "Get some rest, Sinan. Tomorrow you become the luckiest man on earth." The smile on his face was genuine. The hypocrisy was so profound it was almost artistic. The moment the door clicked shut behind him, I let the mask fall. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I sat in the profound silence of the luxurious suite and began to deconstruct the entire edifice of my life, looking for the fatal flaws I had missed. The business conferences in Portland that Arthur had been attending more frequently. Elara's sudden yoga retreats that always seemed to coincide with them. The new, expensive jasmine perfume she wore, which my father had complimented at dinner, noting, "It reminds me of a garden I visited in Kyoto," a detail far too intimate for a future father-in-law. The way they'd sometimes exchange a glance across the dinner table, a silent communication I'd mistaken for familial warmth. The structural weaknesses had been there all along, but I, the architect, had failed to see them because I trusted the foundation implicitly. Confronting them now would be satisfying, but messy. It would give them room to craft excuses, to gaslight, to twist the narrative. They had planned their deception in the shadows. They deserved to be exposed in the brightest possible light. This wasn't just about heartbreak, it was about justice. And justice, like a great building, requires a perfect plan. I worked through the night, my grief and fury channeled into cold, precise action. First, I secured the evidence, uploading the photos to multiple encrypted cloud servers. I then built a simple, elegant, and devastating web page. It featured a clean, minimalist design. At the top, it read, "A message from Julian Croft." Below, I displayed the screenshots of the text messages and the damning photograph, with the metadata timestamps clearly visible. I wrote a brief, factual statement beneath them. "Last night, I discovered that the two people I trusted most have been engaged in a prolonged affair. This wedding is a celebration built on a lie. I believe you all deserve to know the truth." I purchased a new domain, croftweddingtruth.com. It was direct and unambiguous. I generated a QR code linked directly to this page. Using the hotel's business center, I printed 250 high-quality cardstock placards. On one side, in elegant wedding-appropriate script, it said, "In a digital toast to the happy couple. Scan to share your love and support." On the reverse, in smaller print, was the QR code. They looked exactly like the kind of trendy, interactive wedding favor Elara would have loved. My next call was to my attorney, Diana Reed. It was 1:30 a.m. "Julian, everything okay?" she answered, her voice sharp with concern. "No, Diana, it's not." I explained the situation, my voice flat and steady. There was a long silence on the other end. "My God, Julian, I am so sorry." Her lawyerly mind quickly engaged. "Do not, under any circumstances, sign the marriage certificate. What else are you planning?" I outlined my strategy. Diana let out a low whistle. "Brutal and legally impeccable. The truth is an absolute defense. This is your event, and you're sharing factual information about your own life. I'll be there. I'll position myself near the front. If Arthur tries anything physical, or if Elara attempts to cause a scene that requires legal intervention, I'll be there to shut it down. Sometimes, Julian, the most powerful weapon is a public record." I didn't sleep. I showered at dawn, the hot water failing to wash away the chill of betrayal. I put on my custom-tailored Brunello Cucini tuxedo, knotting my tie with steady hands. The man in the mirror looked composed, successful, and ready for his wedding day. No one could have guessed he was heading to the front lines of a war he didn't start, but was determined to win. The morning was crisp and bright, the kind of perfect November day that feels like a gift. At Trinity Parish, the scene was idyllic. Sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows, casting pools of color on the ancient stone floor. The air was thick with the scent of white lilies and gardenias. My mother, Eleanor, arrived radiant in a champagne-colored dress, her face alight with joy. She embraced me. "My beautiful boy, I'm so happy for you." The words were a dagger. I held her tighter than usual. My father arrived, the picture of paternal pride in his Tom Ford tuxedo. He shook hands with guests, his voice booming with confidence. "Quite a day, isn't it? My boy is marrying a wonderful girl." He caught my eye and gave me a firm, approving nod. The same nod he'd given me when I won the state science fair, when I got into UW, when I made partner at the firm. The performance was Oscar-worthy. Then Elara arrived. She was a vision, in a sleek architectural gown of ivory silk crepe, her dark hair swept up in an intricate style. She looked every inch the sophisticated modern bride. She took my hands, her eyes sparkling with what I now recognized as triumphant deceit, not love. "I can't believe it's finally here," she whispered, leaning in to kiss my cheek. "I love you, Julian." "Today is going to be unforgettable," I replied, my voice even. As we took our places at the altar, I could see my plan unfolding. I had enlisted my most discreet usher, a college friend named Ben, to distribute the cards. As the organist played Pachelbel's canon, he moved smoothly through the pews, placing a single card on each seat. He'd whisper, "From the couple," with a smile. The guests, thinking it was a sweet gesture, immediately reached for their phones. I watched the wave of revelation wash over the congregation in real time, a silent, devastating tsunami. My college roommate Leo, standing beside me as my best man, scanned his card. His smile vanished. His eyes, wide with disbelief, shot from his phone to me, then to Arthur. My boss Charles scanned his face hardening into a mask of professional disdain. He showed it to his wife, who put her hand over her heart. My Aunt Sarah gasped so loudly several people turned to look. My mother, sitting in the front pew, curious, picked up her card. I watched her face as she scanned the code. The joyful light in her eyes extinguished, replaced by a horrifying blankness, then a shuddering wave of anguish. She turned her shattered gaze to my father, who was still beaming obliviously. She mouthed a single, silent word. "Why?" Arthur, finally sensing the shift in the room's atmosphere, began to look uneasy. He noticed people staring at him, their expressions a mixture of pity and disgust. He saw my mother's tears. Confusion turned to dawning horror on his face as he realized a secret was no longer secret. Elara, facing the priest, remained blissfully unaware, her profile a perfect picture of anticipation. The Reverend Phillips reached the pivotal moment in the ceremony. His voice echoed in the suddenly tense silence. "Therefore, if any person can show just cause why this man and this woman may not lawfully be joined together, let them speak now or forever hold their peace." The traditional pause followed. It was usually a moment of quiet humor. This time, the silence was profound, electric, and heavy with expectation. I stepped forward. "Reverend Phillips," I said calmly, taking the microphone from the startled officiant, "I have something to say." The entire church held its breath. Elara turned to me, her smile finally faltering, confusion in her beautiful gray eyes. "Elara," I began, my voice amplified, clear and chillingly calm. "I loved you. I thought we were building a masterpiece together." I then turned to my father. "Arthur, you were my blueprint for what a man should be. You taught me that integrity is the foundation of everything." I paused, letting the words hang in the sacred space they had defiled. "Last night, I discovered that the foundation of this marriage is not just cracked, it is rotten. The two people I trusted most have been lying to me, and betraying everyone in this room who loves us." Elara's face drained of all color. "Elara," she stammered, "what are you—" I continued, cutting her off. They have been engaged in an affair, and they plan to stand here today in front of God, family, and friends and make vows they had already broken. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Arthur shot to his feet. "Julian, this is madness! Stop this!" "The proof is in your hands," I announced to the congregation. "Scan the cards on your seats. See the messages. See the photograph, time-stamped from the night of my bachelor party. See the truth for yourselves." The church erupted. The quiet tension shattered into a cacophony of gasps, shouts, and the frantic rustling of paper as those who hadn't yet scanned did so immediately. Elara, finally understanding, looked out at the sea of horrified, accusatory faces. A wrenching, animalistic sob escaped her lips. She stumbled back, as if physically struck. Arthur was shouting now, red-faced, trying to get to me, but was blocked by guests and the pew itself. "It's a misunderstanding, a fake, he's gone crazy!" But the evidence was irrefutable. It was their words, their photograph, their sin displayed for all to see. "This wedding," I said, my voice rising above the din for the final time, "is over. My relationship with both of you is over. You built a house of lies. Today, everyone gets to watch it collapse." I handed the microphone back to a stunned Reverend Phillips. I looked once at my mother, her face buried in her hands, her shoulders shaking. My heart broke for her alone. Then I turned and walked down the aisle, my head high. I didn't look back at Elara's crumbling form or my father's impotent rage. I walked out of the church into the blinding sunlight, the sounds of the scandal erupting behind me, and took my first free breath in months. Leo caught up with me on the sidewalk. "Holy hell, Julian, I don't even know what to say." I replied, "You don't have to say anything. Just drive me away from here." The aftermath was swift and merciless. The story didn't just spread. It went supernova. In the age of smartphones, the evidence was texted, tweeted, and posted on Facebook and Instagram within minutes. By that evening, #WeddingRevenge was trending nationally. My website received over 1 million hits in 48 hours. The professional consequences were severe. Elara was fired from her gallery by Monday morning. The board stated her actions were profoundly incompatible with the ethical standards of our institution. My father's downfall was more spectacular. In a business built entirely on trust, he was radioactive. His partners ousted him from the firm he founded. Major clients severed ties, and his reputation was obliterated. Lawsuits from aggrieved business partners would follow for years. My mother, Eleanor, filed for divorce immediately. She moved into a condo in Queen Anne, and we spent many evenings talking, crying, and slowly rebuilding our relationship without the giant, corrupt shadow of my father looming over it. Diana Reed handled everything with brutal efficiency. There was no marriage to annul, but there were financial disentanglements. Using the threat of a devastating civil lawsuit for intentional infliction of emotional distress, Diana negotiated a settlement where Arthur and Elara were forced to reimburse me for every penny of the wedding expenses, including the non-refundable honeymoon. I donated the majority of it to a charity supporting victims of domestic betrayal. 3 months later, a headhunter called about a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity leading the design team for a new sustainable city project in Copenhagen. I accepted without hesitation. I needed a new skyline. Before I left, Arthur managed to corner me at my apartment as I was packing. He looked 20 years older, his confidence utterly evaporated. "Julian, please," he begged, his voice ragged. "I have lost everything. Your mother, my business, my friends, my son. I am so sorry. It was a moment of madness, of weakness." I looked at the hollowed-out man in my doorway. The hero of my youth was gone, leaving only a pathetic shell. I said, "It wasn't a moment, Arthur." I deliberately used his name, not Dad. It was a series of calculated choices. You made your decisions. These are the consequences. I forgive you, not for you, but for me, so I don't have to carry the weight of your failure for the rest of my life." I closed the door. It was the last time I ever saw him. Now, I'm in Copenhagen. The architecture is different, the language is new, and the air smells of the sea and fresh pastries. I'm designing the future. I date occasionally, cautiously. The experience didn't make me cynical, but it made me smart. It taught me to look beyond the beautiful facade and examine the underlying structure. I heard through the grapevine that Elara moved to Spokane. Arthur is reportedly working as a consultant for a dubious real estate outfit in Tacoma. Their affair, born in secrecy, died instantly under the glare of public scrutiny. It couldn't survive the light. The story of the Seattle wedding scandal still gets told in whispers online, a modern-day cautionary tale. But I rarely think about it. The revenge wasn't in the humiliation, that was merely the method. The true revenge was my liberation. It was walking away from a broken foundation and proving I could design and build a better, stronger, and far more honest life on my own. I learned that while trust is a beautiful blueprint, it's wise to always check the measurements twice.